Hi everybody, welcome to Fretography. Fretography is my mapping system for finding your way around the fingerboard so that whatever key you're in, whatever kind of music you're playing, you know where all the notes are pretty much all the time. And rather than just approach it in a piecemeal way by saying, okay, you've got this scale, you've got that scale, but it would be nice to know how all these things are connected. How do you know where all the notes are all the time? How do you have a picture of the notes on the fingerboard the same way you might look at a piano keyboard and know based on the black and white keys which notes are natural tones and which notes are sharps or flats, etc. The simplest way to approach this is start with the key of C, just like you would on the piano. The key of C, all natural tones, no sharps, no flats, relatively simple to understand. And of course, if you're in the key of C, the first note you need to find is C. And on the guitar, there's more than one place to find any given C, or note called C, right? A note called C. So the first note that we're going to find called C is commonly also known as middle C. Middle C on the guitar falls on the second string on the first fret, or the B string on the first fret. That's middle C. The next place we find that same note is on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and then we find it again on the 10th fret of the 4th string. So we go C, C, C. And there's an additional place for that note on a practical basis. We can find it on the 15th fret of the 5th string, but for the moment we're going to ignore that one. We're just going to focus on C, C, and C. 1st fret, 2nd string, 5th fret, 3rd string, 10th fret, 4th string. Got it? Okay, that's your middle C. Now there is also low C, below in pitch, lower in pitch than middle C by an octave. And that one has two places on the fingerboard on any guitar in standard tuning. Remember, we're in standard tuning. The 3rd fret of the 5th string and the 8th fret of the 6th string. That's it. 3rd fret, 8th fret. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 C's, right? And of course, as everyone knows who's studied geography, there are 7 C's. So we're going to find the other 2. We're going to have all 7 C's on this grid of the fingerboard, which you can think of as a map. Think geographically. If you look at a map, you have latitude, longitude. Oh, it's the other way. Latitude, longitude, right? That's how it works, right? Latitude, longitude. Latitude is you lay down. That's latitude. And longitude is that way. So the 2 more C's. Well, we start on the 8th fret of the 1st string, and we go to the 13th fret of the 2nd string. So now we have the 7 C's. So we have the high C's, 8th fret 1st string, 13th fret 2nd string. We have the middle C, 1st fret 2nd string, 5th fret 3rd string, 10th fret 4th string, and we have low C, 3rd fret 5th string, 8th fret 6th string. All right, 7 C's. You should memorize those positions. Those are really important to know where those are. Now, it's interesting because we have 2 on the bottom. 2, when I say on the bottom, I'm referring to pitch. A lot of people call this string the top string because it's closer to the ceiling. I think that's a really tragic mistake. It's like just absolutely tragic because you got to think in terms of pitch. The concept of up and down on the fingerboard really, really, really has to be all about pitch. This is the bottom string because it's the lowest in pitch. This is the top string because it's the highest in pitch. And I'm going to refer to them that way. Okay, yes, the top string is closer to the floor and the bottom string is closer to the ceiling. We really don't care. I mean, you could be laying on your back and this would be the top string and this would be the bottom string. You'd be standing on your head and this would be the top and this would be the bottom. You could turn it sideways. You can do anything you want. This is the top. This is the bottom because we're talking about pitch. So therefore, the low C goes to the lower strings. The high C is on the 2 highest strings, and middle C goes across the middle, basically, right? So you got it? All right. C is the central note in the key of C. It's the note that the key of C begins and ends on, right? So knowing where those notes are, those 7 C's, will go a long way to giving you reference points, concrete reference points to find your way around all over the place. in the fretography system, we like to start in the middle. All right, so the middle of the key in the key of C is the 5th fret on the 2nd and 3rd strings. Right, your C is on the 3rd string. E is on the 2nd string in that position. Right, so you've got your middle, which is the 5th fret, and you've got the middle of the middle, which is C on the 3rd string, E on the 2nd string. And if you play those two notes, you have your C major double stop, which is, again, the starting point. It's the first harmony in the key of C, the first instance of the beginning of a chord or the beginning of harmony in the key of C. You have the note C, you have the note E, 1 and 3. Now those two notes can also be found on the, again, starting on the middle C on the 2nd string and the open E. So you have the same two notes, middle C, open E, middle C, E above middle C. And then you've got your middle C on the 10th fret, and then you've got your E on the 9th fret of the next higher pitch string, right? So you've got middle C and E, or C major 3rd here, you've got C major 3rd here, and you've got C major 3rd here. 3 C major 3rds. As you can see, same notes. So once you have that, you have, again, you've expanded on your tonal navigational abilities. We can play those all day long, right? And it's good. You want to do that. You want to get those 3 positions and play them all day long, right? Now, if you were to take that position, those 3 positions, and move them up a whole step, you'd be in the key of D, right? So if you take the C and the E, the 1st fret and the open string, and you move it up a whole step so that it's a D major, that means you're going to be on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and you're going to be on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. So now we have a D major. And then we find the same D major on the 7th fret, because now the 7th fret is in the middle. We've now moved to the key of D instead of the key of C, just for as an exercise. We're not going to go all out into the key of D now, but I just want to explain or illustrate or, focus on how you can take an idea from one key and move it to another key using this mapping idea of fretography, right? So if you have the distance between your D major on the first 2 strings, 1st and 2nd string, your D major on the 2nd and 3rd string, which is in the center, which is the 7th fret now, and your D major on the 12th and 11th frets on the 3rd and 4th string, right, which is the other sort of end of the map, right? So you start with right here on the 2nd and 3rd fret, right here on the 7th fret, and 11th and 12th fret. It's the same arrangement in both keys. Now, finding those 3 positions, right, one after another, in relative to each other, you could think, well, I'm going to have to memorize all these fret positions, or I'm going to have to know 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, 11th fret. It's like a lot of numbers in your head. You don't need that, right? You don't really need that. Here's a simpler way. There's always a simpler way, right? Well, sometimes. There is this time. Now here's what I want to look at. I'm not going to count every single fret. I'm not going to look at the number. I don't really want to think about the number of the fret. What I want to know is how I got from here to here. What's in between those 2 positions? How much space have I covered? How much distance have I traveled? Just again, the mapping system. If you go on a trip, you get in your car and you drive. What do you want to know? Do you want to know the latitude and longitude of every stop along the way? No. Right? You could use that maybe if you're a map maker, or a geologist or something. But, what you want is to know what road to take and how far you're going to drive on that road, right? You don't need the absolute latitude and longitude of every gas station that you stop at, right? Okay, so here's how it works, right? In this position, my finger is on the 1st fret, and then I have an open string. And in this position, I'm covering 2 notes on the 5th fret. And what happens in between is there are 3 empty spaces, right? 3 empty spaces. So I'm going to go from here to here, and I'm going to skip these these 3 frets. And when I say frets, another little terminology thing, when I say frets, what I mean is fret spaces, right? Because instead of just thinking about the fret, this little metal strip, this silver line, think about the space that your finger goes in. It's like a piano key. It's where you put your finger on the piano. When you play the piano, you don't look at the lines between the piano keys. You look at the keys themselves, right? So this is like a piano key. If you put your finger there, that's where the note is. The note is not, yes, mechanically speaking, your string is touching the fret, and that's what makes the sound. But you know, that's not where you put your finger, not on top of the fret. You put it right behind the fret, right? So the fret space. This is one space. This is another space. This is another space. You have 3 fret spaces. You skip those 3 fret spaces to get from here to here. And so if we're in the key of D, same thing. We skip 3 fret spaces. You play these 2 notes, you skip 3 spaces, and you find the same 2 notes there. And then we do the same thing again at the other end. Skip 3 spaces, and then you find the next 2 notes. Hello, there we go. So I'm looking at the camera. You skip 3 spaces, skip 3 spaces, find the notes again. Skip 3 spaces, find the notes again. Once I've done that a few times, maybe I can do it without looking at my hands. Right? There we go. Okay. So skip 3 spaces. There it is. Skip 3 spaces, and it's in the next position. Skip 3 spaces, skip 3 spaces. Okay. So here's what I like to do. I like to think in terms of sort of inclusive counting, right? I'm not adding, I'm not subtracting, I'm just counting, right? So inclusively meaning I count the thing I'm starting on, just like you would if you were counting an interval. So in other words, if you go from C to E, that's an interval of a third because you're counting 3 letters of the alphabet, C, D, E. If you count C, D, E, 3 letters of the alphabet, that's what makes a third, right, in music. So if you count fret spaces, why not count the same way? That way you're consistent in your thinking, right? So if you count from the 1st fret to the 5th fret, it is a span of 5 fret spaces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm not thinking additively. I'm not doing math. I'm just encompassing 5 things. I'm counting. That's not really math. That's counting. Not the same, right? So from here to here, and how do I count 5 spaces? So it's easy. I don't have to do it only visually. If I line my fingers up with the frets, and then I add one more, shift one more fret, that's a 5 fret span. So if I go from here to here, from this middle C to this middle C, a 5 fret span, right? 1st fret, 5th fret, total of 5 frets. I have 4 fingers. I simply add one more space. Now I can do the same thing starting from D. I'm not concerned about counting what fret number I'm on. What I'm concerned about is the distance between the 2 frets where the note I want to play are located, right? So if I start here, happens to be the 3rd fret, I don't want to go, say 3 plus 4 is 7. Do I end up on the 7th fret? Yeah, I guess I do, but that's, why do that? Why not just go 1st finger, 4th finger, a span of 5 frets? Because supposing I'm on the 2nd fret, I go 2nd fret, I don't want to do math. The 2nd, whatever fret I'm on, 1st finger, line them up, you find it. It's a hand plus 1. That's another way to think about it. It's a hand, well, that is math, right? Arithmetic. A hand plus 1. That's 5 frets. Hand position, fingers lined up with the frets, add one more. So finding your way between 2 unison notes, and let's define that term. Unison notes on the guitar means you have two positions where you have the same pitched note. So we call that a unison. This middle C and this middle C. Same pitch, two different places on the fingerboard. So to get between two unisons, from the second string to the third string, is a hand position plus 1, right? So here's my hand lined up with the frets, and I'm going to add one more. Here's my hand lined up with the frets. I'm going to go one more that way. So anytime I have a note on the second string and I want to go to the third string, it's a hand plus 1, or 5 spaces all together. Right? So I've got my hand lined up with the frets. I start on my middle C on the third string, and I want to find middle C on the fourth string. So I've got my hand lined up, and I go a hand space, plus 2. So now if I wanted to do the same thing with D, I move my first finger to the third fret on the second string. There's D. And I'm going to do a hand plus 1 to get from D to the unison of D. And then from this one to the next unison, a hand plus 2. Now I could be anywhere and that will work. I could be on the fourth fret, hand plus 1, hand plus 2. So I highly recommend that you spend a little time moving between those positions. Place your finger on the second string anywhere, your first finger. Pluck the note. Here I'm on the third fret. Line your fingers up with the frets. Add one more fret, and you have the unison. First finger on the third string. Line your fingers up with the frets. Add 2 more frets. Ignore that mistake. There we are. So the hand plus 1 between the second and third string, this is really important. That only happens between the second and third strings, that particular ratio, going from the first finger to the fourth finger using 5 spaces, a hand plus 1. Anywhere else on the fingerboard between any 2 adjacent strings, right? Say you go from the first string to the second string, it's a hand plus 2. So we're finding unisons by going from the first finger to the fourth finger, a hand plus 2 more spaces. If I want to go from the third to the fourth, it's a hand plus 2 spaces. From the fourth to the fifth, it's a hand plus 2. From the fifth to the sixth, a hand plus 2. Right? Basic unison navigation. Hand plus 2. Plus 2. Plus 2, plus 1, and plus 2.